Up next on the Parth and Pratham show.
The first time I watched that video, I was appalled. I mean, obviously appalled, but I was speechless. I wanted to reach through the screen and tell him to stop and stop him myself. If I could, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. To be honest with you, it was yeah, it was horrible.
It's the Parth and Pratham show.
Protests have been going on around the world since the death of George Floyd. They have gotten violent and created a divide in the nation. Police officers have been firing tear gas canisters into the crowd, and protesters have been walking up to police officers, taunting them. Both sides have inflamed the situation, making it worse.
To get a current perspective on the situation, we would like to bring on Captain Nathan Schmidt of the Dublin Police, or the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Captain Schmidt, along with the Dublin Police, assisted protesters in their peaceful protests in Dublin. Today, he joins us to give the police perspective on this dividing issue.
Good morning. I'm Captain Nathan Schmidt.
So, Captain Schmidt, let's start with some basic questions. All right, tell us about your childhood. Like, how was life growing up? Where did you grow up? Things like that.
So I grew up in the Bay Area. I had a good childhood, and went to high school over in Livermore at Granada High School, and then went to college at UC Davis, which was awesome. I got a bachelor's degree in sociology. I went to emphasis in law and society, and that was pretty much the closest thing that I could find that was kind of in line with law enforcement or criminal justice. So I think you had mentioned like about hobbies and that kind of stuff. I played sports throughout high school. I played baseball, basketball, and played golf as well. So golf was kind of the hobby part of it.
That's interesting. How long did you play baseball and golf?
So I played baseball since I was probably 9 years old, and I played through high school, and then I played my first year in college, and then I didn't play any longer. Still play like softball and that kind of stuff. Anything I can get my hands on, but a little tough with the times the way they are now. But yeah, still try to keep active and do that kind of stuff.
Did you have any aspirations of becoming like a pro sports player?
Oh, I would have loved to have been a pro sports player. Obviously, that would have been outstanding. That would have been great. Yeah, I obviously went to A's games and Giants games throughout my childhood, and yeah, that would have been my dream to one day play for one of those teams.
Yeah, but you ended up as a police officer. So what was the primary motive of becoming a police officer? What was the reasoning behind it?
So when I was a young kid, my dad worked for the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, and so I can remember when I was super young, my dad would bring a police car home and he'd park it in the driveway and let me play with the lights and siren. I thought that was the coolest thing going. So that was what started me. But then moving forward, it was more, a job that I wanted to do a job that I could help people. And this is definitely the profession for that, as well as I didn't want to sit in an office all day. I wanted to do something different every single day and not know really what it was going to be and what was going to entail. And that, once again, this job definitely entails that kind of stuff.
So now that you are a police officer, right? You're a police captain. What are the joys of being a police captain? Like day-to-day things that just make you happy, type of thing.
Just getting out in the community and helping folks. Especially now, they see us in the community. Our community is great. We're very lucky to be here in the city of Dublin, because I would say on a daily basis, especially lately, people come up to you and thank you for what you do. And just being able to help folks. And in Dublin, we have the time to go out and take those small details and help folks out, on a daily basis, which is awesome.
Yeah, so you talked about how you help people, right? So we just wanted a little like funny question in there because we know we're going to talk about some serious topics today. What is the strangest call for help you've gotten? Is there anything that like catches your eye or that you think of when you think of, oh wow, that was just an interesting thing I did?
Well, we get all kinds of strange calls, and you never know what you're going to respond to. I remember as a young officer, I responded to a resident, and like I said, small things, right? So somebody had called in, and it was An older lady had called in and said she was having trouble with her neighbors, and her neighbors' pets were coming over and going to the bathroom on her front lawn. And so I said, okay, well, so we showed up there and to see what we had. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen your lawn aerated. They have the little pieces of aeration that they pull out of the lawn. Well, that was all over her lawn, and she thought that it was a pet that was next door using the restroom on her lawn. So we had to explain to her what was going on, and she was definitely grateful. But that was definitely a strange call.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you said you went to UC Davis and you majored in, was it law or?
It's I majored in sociology.
Sociology.
Yeah.
With like a specification on law, right?
Yes. So the specific part of my major was called Law and Society.
Okay.
Yeah. So what additional steps did you do to demonstrate that you wanted to be a police officer? Was there maybe like an academy you did in your youth, or maybe you just did an internship?
Not necessarily. I think being around with my dad and the family, and being around law enforcement and being around other law enforcement officers, kind of just seeing the values and what those other people had made me want to go towards that line of work.
Yeah, that's great, having that family connection. So you're pretty high ranking in the Dublin Police Department. You're a police captain. So would you be able to describe the pathway for just the average person of how long it takes to be a police captain and what maybe rankings you have to pass?
Sure. So I started out in the academy. So I've been, you guys probably know, but the Dublin Police Services is a contract with Alameda County Sheriff's Office. So the city pays the county for police services. So I get paid by Alameda County Sheriff's Office. So I've been working for Alameda County Sheriff's Office for 21 years. I started in 1999, and I went through a basic academy there, which was, I think, eight months long. So I had my training started there. From there, I worked at Santa Rita Jail here in Dublin, and worked there for a while, for a couple of years. And then I came out here as a patrol officer, then went to detective, and then eventually promoted to sergeant, which is the next rank up from officer. I worked in investigations as a sergeant, and then I promoted to lieutenant. I worked in Dublin as a lieutenant here, and then probably, I think it's been about 3 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, I promoted to the rank of captain. With the contract here in Dublin, it's a little bit different. So normally when you get promoted, you end up going back to work not in Dublin, you work for the sheriff's office, and you kind of have to work your way back to this contract here in Dublin. Lucky for me, I've worked, of my 21 years, I've worked about 15 of them here in Dublin. So been very, very lucky and blessed on that aspect.
Yeah, Dublin is amazing. So as a captain, what does your typical day entail? How long do you work a day? What do your shifts look like?
So for me, my shifts are kind of stable, more not like when I was younger, when I had shifts all over nighttime and different days and that kind of stuff. So right now my shifts are Monday through Friday, and I work from 8 in the morning till 5 in the evening. And that can change and it can vary. It just depends on if we had some kind of emergency going on or something like that. Then I may have to, change my shift a little bit to come in early or stay a little bit late just to make sure there's supervision for, some type of an event that goes on. But I do have 2 lieutenants that are underneath me. So one lieutenant takes care of investigations and that kind of stuff, and the other lieutenant takes care of our patrol staff. So I oversee those 2 people as well.
What's the biggest emergency you've had to deal with / the longest time you've had to work consecutive hours?
Well, I think a good example is just recently with all the civil unrest. Normally as a captain, you're more, like I was saying, you're more of a stable hour, 8 to 5 kind of person. But just recently, because of all the protests and things along those lines, I think was it 3 weeks ago, I put in 75 hours in 1 week, which was a long week for me.
Oh, wow.
not used to that, but that's okay. As long as the city was safe, that was the ultimate goal, and I think we did a good job doing that.
So I actually know a few people who want to be police officers. So if you just want to talk to the kids over there who's like, oh, I want to be a police officer, what would you say to someone who wants to be a police officer? Like, what steps should they take? Things like that.
Stay in school, go to school. Nowadays, all you need to become a police officer is to be 21 and have a high school degree. But my recommendation is to stay in school, go through college, get your AA, get your bachelor's degree, get all your schooling in, stay physically fit, and stay up on the laws and that kind of stuff, study that kind of stuff. But really being physically fit, and I think getting the education in first is huge. So that would be my recommendation. And look around at different departments, talk to folks at different departments, and see what's a good fit for you. See what kind of areas you like. I mean, a lot of people. So I grew up in this area, so it's nice that I can police in this area because I feel like I'm helping the community that I'm in. So, but that's for each individual to see where they'd like to serve and help the community.
Okay, so as you know, the coronavirus, it's still here. People are still having to follow social distancing protocols. What specific changes or protocols have the Dublin Police Department or the Alameda County Sheriff's Department started following in order to cope up or to follow the social distancing protocols?
Wow. So we did not see this coming, right? I don't think any of us see this coming. So it affects us both at work. If it affects us at home, it affects our families and all that kind of stuff. So as soon as we kind of got a grasp on what was going on, we put some different protocols in place for our officers. So first off, like at the station, we have to wear masks all the time while we're at our station. If we're in our office and we're by ourselves, then we can take our mask off. But if we're in the station and we're traversing through the station, everybody has to have a mask on. We also limited the number of people that could come into the front lobby to one person at a time, and they have to have their masks on as well. We started doing our briefings and those type of things outside, so that we didn't have any close quarters with our sergeants and our patrol folks being too close together. We got a hand washing station we put in our back door for people that come in and out. So every time they come in and out, they wash their hands. We also bought some, for the lack of a better word, these sanitizing fans that we have throughout the station that we turn on, and it purifies the air, which is good. And then we deep cleaned all our patrol cars. I think we've done that a couple times now. And as well as there's a mister kind of thing that we've done through the station a couple different times too. So all the hard surfaces are cleaned off. As far as our officers responding out to the scene, we've asked them to talk to citizens if they can outside. It's just easier. There's more airflow and that kind of stuff, as well as wearing their N95 masks where they're making those contacts. It's same with like when they're making car stops and stuff, they should be wearing their masks when they do that. With our job though, there are some situations where things rapidly evolve, and if it's gonna affect their tactics or their safety or whatever, then they're allowed to not have them on if it's a emergency situation. But a lot of things that had to be put in place to try to both protect our staff and also protect the community out there as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm really happy to see that our police force is taking the necessary precautions in order to remain safe, but also protect the community. Really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking of the idea about taking as much measures as possible unless it affects your tactics, that's an interesting point. And tactics has been a big part of the national conversation, especially after the death of George Floyd. So, and a lot of police departments around the nation are changing their policies regarding chokeholds. Is the Dublin Police Department doing anything specifically to help with that?
So we follow under most of our policies fall under the general orders of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, and yes, we are changing that policy. We don't necessarily call it a chokehold. We call it a carotid restraint is the name that we use under our policy, but that is being changed absolutely in accordance with both what the governor's put out and what the president's put out.
Okay, awesome. So we just want to get like your perspective as a police officer. When you saw the video of George Floyd getting chokeholded or carotid restrained, and then afterwards passing out and then dying, what was your what were you thinking? Is there any like immediate reaction that came to your mind or something like that?
Absolutely. The first time I watched that video, I was appalled. I mean, obviously appalled, but I was speechless. I wanted to reach through the screen and tell him to stop and stop him myself. If I could, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. To be honest with you, it was it was horrible.
Yeah. So just for everybody at home, was the officer following correct protocol and using the training that he would have received in the academy?
So, I mean, I don't know what their training is in Minneapolis, but I can definitely speak for Dublin Police. Absolutely not. That is not something that we train in. And also, we have some other precautions in place that would help avoid a situation like that, where our officers are. It says they shall intercede, they shall stop someone when they see some type of use of force that's outside of policy.
That's awesome. I actually really like the last thing that you said, where other police officers are allowed to basically check if protocol is being used when another officer has to use force or things like that. I think that's really important.
No, they're required to. I mean, that's right in our policy. So if they don't, and something like that were to go down, and they didn't intercede and stop that other officer, then they actually would be outside of policy as well. So
It's almost like a responsibility that you have to protect each other as well as the community. So as you told us earlier, you've been a police officer for now 21 years. So would you like to just explain the training you got when you were first a rookie in the academy? Were you being trained in all these like nuance, racial bias, implicit bias, how to prevent it from happening?
So like I said, I went through the academy back in 1999, and it was an 8-month academy. But I would say that as time has gone on through 21 years, training has definitely evolved. And I'm pretty proud of our agency, the way that we evolved. We do cover de-escalation and bias-based policing and that type of thing in the academy, as well as what we call continued professional training, which occurs for everybody every 2 years, and those topics are covered in there and continue to be covered. I would say when I went through, there wasn't as much of that, but they've definitely picked up the pace, and I think they're doing a pretty good job right now.
Wow, that's a really interesting idea about like how to keep everyone continue learning and up to date with the new things. Do you know if all police departments do that, a continued training?
I can't speak for everybody, but I would assume. I know several of the local departments around here do have continuous training. I don't know if they call it the same thing, but there is. They continue to train, and I think that's very important for not only police officers, but for any profession. They need to continue to be on top of their trade.
Yeah. So you talked about how basically the community is the most important in the job of the police. And I think that in Dublin, the community is positively responding to the police because of the success of the Dublin protest that you guys had. And I think one reason this protest was successful was because the police assisted protesters in keeping the protest peaceful and blocking off some of the roads and basically assisting them in having a proper peaceful protest. Right. So, what strategies did the Dublin PD or the Alameda County Sheriff's Department use to keep the protest peaceful, and why do you think these strategies are important?
Well, I think it was. I would say that the biggest reason for our success was open communication. We spoke to the organizer of the protest to kind of figure out what the logistics were going to be, where the crowd was going to first gather, what routes they wanted to take, and that kind of stuff. So we were on the same page, which is really helpful. And we really were just hoping for the safety of everyone out there, the protesters as well as traffic. We didn't want to see, anybody be injured or anything along those lines. But really the open communication really assisted us in being able to facilitate that, and for, the protesters to get their word out and also do it safely. So I was happy to see everything was successful, safe, with no damage or any violence or anything like that. So it was good to see.
We now have a audience question from our president of the Dublin High School Black Student Union. He was wondering if there's a subconscious racial bias within law enforcement, and what does the Dublin Police Department do to mitigate this? Is it just the training that you continue to offer to all your officers?
Right. Yeah. So, I can't speak for all in law enforcement, and I would be naive to say that there's no subconscious bias. I think each and every one of us, whether we're a police officer or not, have some type of implicit bias. But I could speak for Dublin Police. I think that the training that we put in place has definitely assisted in that, and the ongoing training that we have. It's not just a one-time thing, and it's evolving. It's definitely evolving. I think we need to evolve along with it, and I think we've so far done a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, I like how you said like police training has to be like some like fluid, basically, right? And has to evolve with the time. So as new situations arise, there should be different training to cope with those situations, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so now we just have a couple final questions. If someone wants to participate in Black Lives Matter protests and movements and things like that, do you have any like do you have any like basically rules or things that they should follow in order to remain safe and have it be peaceful?
Yeah, I think if you have something that you really feel passionately about, then that's the great thing about this country. You have the opportunity to go out there and voice your opinion. The biggest thing for us is if there's a planned rally, to have open communication with the police, and not we're here to help facilitate that First Amendment right and that voice. So I think doing so peacefully is great. There are some things, obviously, if we're going to march in the street, we need to know about it beforehand, just for permits and safety and all those type of things. But other than that, I'm open for peaceful protests and having your First Amendment rights and voicing your opinion of what you feel strongly about.
Yeah, it's important to protect the citizens with their right, but also making sure they're safe to enjoy those rights. If people want to learn more about you or just find you somewhere, where can they go? Maybe a social media?
So I saw this question before. I'm not a big social media person, but I can tell you that I'm out in the community quite a bit. So, I'm at the farmer's market. We have quite a bit of coffee with the cop or pizza with the police, all those different events that we have. You can also attend our Citizens Academy or Youth Academy. There's also a Dublin 101 that or inside Dublin that we have that I'm at that as well. So, I'd love to talk. Like I said, that's why I got in this job, right? So that I can talk to the community and get to know them and hopefully help them and provide services. So I would just ask that, if you see me, come talk to me. That's why I'm out there, to get to know you, and hopefully you can get to know me.
Yeah. Community builder for sure. I never heard about this before. Would you like to detail more about this community or coffee with a cop or pizza with the police?
So we're trying to continue the conversation, right? So, a lot of times when people have their first contact with the police, it's they're in a bad situation or they need help or whatever the case may be. So they don't have the time to actually sit down and learn about the police officers that are actually serving the community. So with Coffee with the Cop or Pizza with the Police, it kind of gives us a forum to sit down and just chat and get to know one another. They get to know what we do and who we are, and I think it's really good. Same with like farmers market when we're out there with coffee with the chief, and the chief comes out and talks to all the folks as well. Just another opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah, I really like the aspect of conversation and communication that you talked about, because at the end of the day, we're all part of the community, whether it's like a police officer, a scientist, whatever, right? And so we should all communicate, talk together, and make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Captain Schmidt, thank you so much for coming on our show. We really, really, really appreciate it. Um, I mean, that's about it. Yeah, thank you
This
so
was a
much.
very enlightening
Awesome.
conversation. Thank you so much.
You guys did a great job. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.